Alrighty, I think we are live. Hello, everybody. Good evening from Australia. And good morning if you are in Europe, such as my guest tonight. And good afternoon if you are in the United States. My name is Grace Harris. You are on Grace Harris, author and transformational coach. We are on Women Unleashed live series again. And tonight I am so excited because I'm going to be talking to Johdi Woodford about her mission as a restorative movement specialist. And this is for women if you are over 40. And we're going to be talking about some things that have been in your mind that may not be commonly talked about. But first, we want to get to know the guest that I have tonight because she has a story that has really led her to become who she is today, a change maker in a lot of people's lives. And these, women such as Johdi, there's not enough of them. I tell you this because I've had so many conversations in the last 12 months about healing, about transcending, about resilience. But there's not enough talking about how movement actually plays a big part in how we move, how we heal, how we live, how we breathe, how we move forward, how we transform. And so, now just to remind you, the disclaimer that I like to give when we begin these conversations is that in Women Unleashed, there are questions that I'm going to ask my guest that might be confronting for you. And if that happens, I ask you to stay with us because we will hold your hand and show you exactly if you are going through the same similar experiences, how you can transcend that, or if you are someone who's already gone through that and want to get some inspiration on how you can help others too. We are here for that as well. But before I go on, I want to just introduce my guest, Johdi. Johdi, welcome. How are you?
I'm okay, Grace. Thanks very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being with me. Would you just share a little bit about you to our audience, please?
Yeah, sure. I run a company here in Switzerland and online. It's called Johdi Woodford Therapeutics. It's been going for several years now, and my mission is to help women who are 40 and over get to the root cause of their pain and treat it so that it doesn't come back. So I really want women to stop feeling fat, frumpy, and fucked off and frustrated as hell that this is age and that, the way they feel now is the way they will feel forever forwards. And I want them to have, I want to bring a message of hope, I suppose, that you can get, slim in your jeans and strong in your body and serene in your minds. And you're not a lost cause. It's probably a lot more simple than you think.
Mm. Exciting for me to be able to ask you questions that are to be a voice of women over 40 here. Jod, I know that we touched a little bit before about how you've got to really focus on helping now, not just in your studio in Switzerland, but also online, because something had happened around the COVID time for you where you realized, well, everyone had been affected like significantly, but then that was when you realized that you have been playing quite small given what you can give to others. And so, before we go to the part where you've just had that realization and you're gonna, you really have to get your megaphone on and help others. What were the transitions in life, from years ago that had made you the resilient woman that you are, that had made you the woman who knows grit and grace together?
I'm 43, so there's been a lot of revolutions around the sun, as you can relate to as well, Grace. Um, but I think, I was always into sport. I was always a mover. I was always good at it, and I had lots of knocks and bumps and scrapes. So I had an innate sense of how the body moves, how it should move, and how it doesn't move when it's broken, what healing does, its limitations, and all the rest of it. And I kind of forgot all of that, went to university, did a degree, went into the corporate world, was being a corporate warrior. Everything was great. Was expecting our second baby, and
I've lost your sound, Jode. Hang on a second. I've lost you when you were about to have your second baby. So can you hear me?
can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
But I can't hear you. Oh It's
Ah,
a disaster.
so is
Oh
that you?
wait, I've got you. I've got you. Can you?
Okay. So it's cutting out a little bit when your words are, or it has something to do with the connection of your. So can you hear me now?
I've got you now.
Okay, I've got you again. Okay, all right. So we'll try this again. Sometimes, yeah, it happens to me with my friends with the headphones. So you've forgotten all about what movement can do, and you did the corporate thing like many of us.
Exactly. And then there I was living my best corporate life and earning a big fat, steady salary with 5 weeks of holiday a year and thinking that life was great. And I was expecting our second child and she died of stillbirth. And it was completely unexpected because the pregnancy was without incident. And I actually went to the hospital thinking that I'd gone into labor early. And that's when they said, no, the baby's heart has stopped. You are going to have to give birth. I went into complete shock, had to have an emergency C-section under general anesthetic. My poor husband thought that I died and the baby died because they just whisked us both off to the operating theatre. And when I came round, the world had ended. I just thought, well, this is it. I don't know how anyone's supposed to survive this. I had a child, my oldest now, and I think she is definitely what got me through because you can't be dead when you're trying to be someone's mother. So I couldn't be dead, although I did come very close to trying to get dead. But when I came close to suicide, I actually called up my gynecologist's office and said, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking. What can you do? And the poor receptionist was, completely out of her depth and just said to me, it's totally normal, madame. This is totally normal, and you need to rest, and you need to go home, and you need to have a nice bath. And she gave me this advice that was very, very well-meaning. But in that instant, I just thought, I am completely alone, not in a bad way, but I am alone. And if I don't do something about this, no one is going to come and save me. So I went on a major mission to heal myself, to bring myself back to myself. And as I was going on that mission, I was learning all sorts of different things. I'd already been doing a load of Pilates. I was training to be a Pilates instructor. I went and had Ericksonian hip therapy, energy. I mean, you name it, I did it. And I took the best of those techniques and built it into a system that I used on myself to keep myself kind of normal and on track with my family. And I've kind of honed that system and built in, well, done loads of other training since. And it's now that system that I bring to my clients to immediately help them get out of this chronic physical pain that they're feeling. But usually that chronic physical pain has been there for a while and they're now, very overweight and very depressed and lacking confidence and, playing small, basically. So that in a nutshell is how I use my traumatic experience in my everyday life now, which I know is the crux of your mission here with this series. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. So often we have to go at a really, really low point before we can discover how it is to swim back up and really rise up. And with your story, I think that you've discovered how to help others. But I think there was yet again another catalyst when COVID had actually affected the business that you weren't conducting online at the time. So here you are helping other people, making a difference in their lives and making them feel better. But then again, it was shut down like millions of us. I was like at the I was supposed to be launching my really, really promising speaking on stage career March 2020, and then poof, COVID hit. Like many of us. So tell me again, how did this did it remind you of any resilience that was left in your bone, or was it a completely another new shock again? How was that experience for you?
I think I'm lucky in that I'm from Zimbabwe, and as you can see, I'm white. So I don't know if you remember a while ago, the black population in Zimbabwe, and for various political reasons, decided to go and take all of the land away from the white farmers and take it back for the blacks and chase out the white farmers and other whites. And we weren't farmers. I was just unlucky enough to be white. And at the time, I was actually at university in the UK, and the UK press was talking about, oh, you know, the white farmers this and the white farmers that, and it's really good that the blacks have gone and taken back their land in Zimbabwe and all the rest of it. And being from the country and actually having a little bit or more of a nuanced view, I was a bit shocked by the news headlines. But what happened was actually several incidences of backlash where from one day to the next, I suddenly had people that didn't want to talk to me anymore, or had some nasty comments made in lectures, or, you know, just generally a bit of racism, which I suppose is normal. I would not like to be Russian right now. I would hate to be Russian right now and living anywhere in Europe, because you're automatically the bad guy, right? I would hate to be a Jew from Israel. You're automatically the bad guy if you're on the side of the Palestinians, which World Opinion is. So I actually experienced really young the shock of going from blending into public pariah at your university that's supposedly so, you know, open-minded and free-thinking and all the rest of it. And at the same time as getting all of this backlash as this, you know, young adult far away from home, I also saw people in Zim who had to run away with the clothes on their back because, you know, they'd lost everything overnight. And I saw, especially, and my parents as well, you know, were affected by it, whatever. But I saw, you know, how quickly a situation can change, how quickly you have to, you know, adapt and kind of chameleon your way into another role. And I think that kind of stayed with me, so that when COVID came, instead of thinking, well, of course, I thought, bugger me, Jesus Christ, now what? But I regrouped. I must say, I regrouped quite quick. I didn't sit and victimize for too long, luckily. And I actually used it as an opportunity to build a business that I can now get my arms around. I was running a rather large business before that, yes, was successful, but it was a lot. And I built a monster that I had to feed all the time. And the business that I've got now is much more human and humane to my clients and to me. So I've got this, you know, business that I can kind of cradle, and it's turned out to be a remarkable opportunity. Would I wish for the same thing to happen again? No, but here I am to tell the tale. So and not doing too badly for it. But I think that maybe, you know, implosion of Zimbabwe back in the day stayed with me in my bones, and maybe that's where the resilience comes from. Not sure.
I'd say so. I mean, for many of us, when the going gets tough, really we try and take what we've learned from a very young age, and that's all we've got, because everything else is taken away, and then that's what we work with. And it's remarkable just to hear the story, though, over and over again in different variations of women who have, you know, down the bottom of the barrel, and wow, who am I really? Yeah, that question. And I've got this. So those two things. Who am I really? And I've got this. Ooh, so now I want to please tell me, what does a restorative movement specialist do?
Well, what I do is I have three main things. I have three main techniques. I use something called, okay, you know what? I'm going to drop all the jargon. I'm going to tell you how it works. Okay, so I am in my studio this morning. Here's a quick demonstration. Okay, so you come to see me and you say, Jokes, I've got a really stiff back, it's really sore. And I'm like, okay, Grace, let's have a look. You come into my studio, yeah? You walk into my studio and you take a seat on a chair and you start talking to me, okay? Now I have three major strings to my bow, if you like. I can, as you walk into the room, I can see how you walk and how you don't walk. So because we're upright, biped human beings, we all walk the same way. We're all supposed to walk the same way. There's a map of how you are supposed to walk. And I can see where you're sticking to the map and where you're not on the map. So with every step that you take, I can say, okay, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working, that's not working. Okay. Then I have another qualification that gives me X-ray vision. So I can actually peel back the layers of your skin as you're walking around. Quite gruesome, but great. And I can say to myself, okay, that muscle and that connection and that ligament and that bone are not lined up, which is causing friction on that muscle and that ligament and that bone, and then what I can do is very precisely test those muscles to see which one's overworking, which one's underworking, because we work in a nice binary way, and re-engineer that kinetic pattern via the motor control system in the brain, so that we reverse engineer your faulty movement patterns and build proper functional movement patterns on top. And then I can give you a nice little tuck and snip and tuck with some great Pilates moves to make you strong and supple and slim and all the rest of it. But that is how I work.
Wow. That's amazing. So first you can map out whether I am swaying or I'm walking the way we all are supposed to walk. And then you have an x-ray vision that's I want that superpower where that muscle might or that muscle might not be here or there. And then you have this is the most intriguing part. I don't know if I've caught the right lingo, but you're able to do some kind of a reverse engineer using the brain to fix all that. Like I was thinking before you said the third step, here I was thinking that you were gonna do adjustments in a topical and like touchy feely way. But so this is really, really interesting. I am a complete layman here. You can instruct me, talk to me like I'm a 3-year-old because I'm hungry for it. So what, like how, and I'll keep it real, okay? So let's use me as an example. Okay, so I was 37 years old, let's say 10 years ago, a little bit less. Just don't forget the age. I'm not that old yet. So I was diagnosed with what they called osteoarthritis, patellofemoral osteoarthritis degenerative disease. And the doctor said to me, it's gonna get worse, it's only gonna get worse, not better. And I'm like, I don't think so. You can't say that to me, I'm too young. And so anyway, so I fixed that. But the thing that I want to focus on is that someone, I think it was like a podiatrist, had said something to me that you don't have an arch on your heel. You've got to fix that. And so I guess the question that I have is how do we end up not aligned, and how can we use that system where we're not just being frustrated with our physical body, but having that adjustment here in our brain? How does this work?
Well, the way, I mean, it's all motor control. So in your brain, there's the parietal lobe, and that controls all sorts of things, and the motor control system sits in there. So in this little sliver of a brain, there is the actual house of where we do our movements. So your brain doesn't care. Your brain says, okay, pick up a pen, and it'll pick up a pen. But what you want your brain to do is say, please extend your forearm, extend your elbow, use your pincer grip, and pick up a pen, okay? Because then it means that your shoulder, elbow, and hand are all working pretty much normally, and I'm really, simplifying things. But if you are not working normally, you will still pick up the pen, but you may pick up the pen with your neck or your left big toe or your right leg, because all your body cares about is pick up the pen. But what happens over time is if you keep picking up the pen with your left neck instead of with your lovely, lovely pincer grip, because your pincer grip is supposed to and your neck is not, your neck after a while is like gets pissed and goes on holiday and then says to your your other shoulder, pick up a pen. And the shoulder will do it until it's like, but I'm trying to do this as well as this, and this was not in my job description, so I'm just going to go back to doing this, but I'm going to tell her I'm pissed. And you get pain, and you get pain, and you get pain as you go through the patterns, till eventually you're in so much pain that you're like, help me, or things break down. And that's when you get like patellofemoral, you get this like grinding, breaking, graunching of a major joint because something further upstream broke and your body just kept compensating and compensating and compensating. So it's my job to kind of reverse engineer all of those compensation patterns and then say to your brain, it's okay, don't worry. This muscle, you're fine. You don't have to work so hard because look, this muscle's back on board. And your brain learns through repetition. So the more we tell this muscle, it's okay, please stop overworking because look, this muscle's back from holiday, the more this muscle, this overworking muscle that's causing you the pain will be like, okay, it's okay, I'm okay, it's safe. But your body doesn't like a vacuum. So as soon as one thing breaks, it'll just ask something next to it or along the chain somewhere to do the work. And so it's just a case of telling the brain that everything's going to be okay, putting it in a nice little placatory mode. So it's like, oh, it's okay, it'll all be all right. I don't have to be in a vacuum, like nothing's going to break, it's okay. And then, you come back to balance. And then, you retrain those movements with like proper functional stuff. So I bet if I watched you walk, I would see, your dodgy leg or something like that. But I would probably see that you're probably not swinging your opposite arm. And so instead of walking like a human being, you're probably walking around like a bit of a pillock with a stick up your ass and keep tapping on that compensation pattern. So, that's why they all kind of link in together, really. Does that
Yeah,
make more
absolutely. It
sense?
does. It does. Now, well, for me, it does. I'm the kind of person that when you explain it that way, then my mind starts to really itemize and detail what you're trying to illustrate, and it clicks everything like, oh. So, but I guess the more important question is that when you say that you are passionate about helping women so that they can, women over 40, who stop feeling fat, frumpy, and pissed off, and what are the common causes, like why over 40? And for me, that this was true. When I stepped on over 40, then things started to be different. But
Mm.
why is it particularly that age, and what causes all these things?
I think like you, I felt it. I felt it when I hit 40, that things had to change, that I couldn't rely on the same kind of coping mechanisms or the same systematic approach. I had to tweak things. I think, there's a lot of research and science coming out at the moment. So I think some people would argue that it even starts at 35, but um, you know, we as women are different in that we do deal with extreme variations of hormones that men don't deal with. Because although girls and boys both go through puberty, the other things that hit women are pregnancy and then perimenopause and menopause. And those huge hormonal changes, they're beginning to realize more and more, affect us in a pretty systemic way. I'm sure we can all remember maybe puberty. It wasn't my most fun time of life. But it's emotional and it's complicated and it's just busy. Pregnancy, I had 4 pregnancies and 3 children. I wouldn't go through that again. I wasn't a particularly jolly, happy-go-lucky pregnant lady. I felt fat and ungainly and brain fogged and all the rest of it. And I was very happy when I had a baby in my arms and didn't have to be pregnant anymore. And then, the next thing that we get to is where I am now. And I think I could speak to us both is this kind of, well, I'm not going to have any more kids. And so this is the body I've got, and this is the body I'm going to spend the rest of my life in. So best I take the best possible care of it, because now what I've got to look forward to is aging and more aging, and let's chuck in a bit of perimenopause and menopause and then some more aging. And I think, like you, I just refuse to be like, well, I'm just going to end up fat, frumpy, and pissed off because, now I'm in my 40s and things don't work like they should. And my knee hurts and my back hurts. So I've stopped doing tennis and I've given up yoga. And now I'm doing Nordic walking with the 80-year-olds in my village. And yes, I'm drinking too much, but it's fine, like whatever. This is it. I just refuse to be a bit defeatist about it. So I think the science would say from 35 on is when things start to change. And you can say things start to change, or you can be like, things start to change. So let's make a plan. But I noticed it for me, whether I was in denial before or not. And to be honest, I only had my 3rd child when I was 36. So I noticed it in myself when I hit 40. When I hit 41, I would say it was definitely a bit like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't work like it used to. So now what's next? I think as well, the big thing for me is my mum had Alzheimer's and she recently passed away. And the effects of, lots of women suffer from dementia because they suffer from depression in midlife, which is us now, Grace. It's like, that's scary. I don't want to think what I'm doing now means that I might die of this horrible degenerative disease that is actually worse for my loved ones than it is for me. So that's another galvanizing thing where I'm just like, I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be frumpy. I don't want to be defeatist. It can sound a bit exhausting with all of these things that we don't want to be, but I just think, what's the option? To die like my mum, it's not a life. It's just not on. It's not on. So I think that's
Yeah. And when you say that it's Alzheimer's, for example, is worse for the loved ones than yourself, it really hits the nail on the head, isn't it? Or is that saying like because you live for your loved ones, you want to be the best so that you can enjoy the time with them. But you talk
yeah.
about, okay, so we are on 40s. What's the choice? Things are changing or things are changing. Like, so when we talk about tweaking, I didn't actually start tweaking till I was like 42, 43. So denial, you say. Maybe it was like a couple of years for me. I was like, oh no, it's okay. It's just because I'm just going through this really busy time. And so it'll come back, like my metabolism will come back. I'll sleep again like the way that I used to. And that's okay. I'll go back to my pole dancing. And it was like probably about 2 or 3 years of I'm like, it's, and then I then started to slowly tweak.
Accept.
So
Mm.
yeah, but so where I'm not the expert on it though, so I'm here to ask you, what do you advise? So if I was a 40-something-year-old woman and just had come out of the denial bit and now is opening up to tweaking, making changes, what would be the most non-confronting first few steps?
Good question. I love it. I think look after your brain. So the easiest ways to look after your brain are to drink a lot of water, more water than you think is sensible, more water than you would usually drink. Drink a lot of water, and have downtime in your brain. Whether that's meditation, whether it's walks in nature, whether it's silent retreats, but have moments every day where your brain is not subject to stimuli of any kind. That includes reading, watching the telly, listening to the newspaper, listening to the radio. Have moments of just white space where your brain can just regenerate. I meditate. I have, a special practice where I actually put my body against gravity and do all of the stuff. And I'd be happy to share that with your audience. By the way, I'll send you the link afterwards. But you want to look after your brain. So that's step number one. Step number two is eat less sugar. And what you think is sugar is probably not what I think is sugar. So sugar is everything that tastes sweet. That includes fruit and it includes sweet vegetables. So when you're sitting there with your sweet potato salad with pumpkin seeds and feta cheese and a nice slice of wholemeal bread, you might as well eat a Mars bar because that meal is full of sugar, starches, and your brain, your body metabolizes sugar pretty much all the same. So, yes, we should definitely not eat added sugar and we should not be drinking a whole pile of alcohol. That goes without saying. But the other hidden sugars that smart people know about, instead of thinking, oh, I'm looking for the aspartame label on a bottle of fizzy pop or something. No, what you're looking for is the sweet taste in your mouth. So take that out. So eat less sugar. So I like to say follow the 75% rule. So 75% of your meals should be meals that you eat for fuel rather than for pleasure. And 75% of the plate in a meal that you're eating for fuel should be made up of green and leafy vegetables. So vegetables that are both green and have leaves. That rules out green peas, mange tout, avocados. Okay, that brings in things like lettuce, spinach, chicory, kale, those sort of things. So you want to eat a lot of those. So 75% of your plate should be vegetables that are both green and leafy. Okay. And then the other thing is take your body through as many ranges of movement as possible. A lot of us think that when we have pain or when we have a diagnosis that comes like yours, where it's, arthritis or arthrosis, you kind of think, oh, okay, got to be careful. Wrong. What usually happens, science is telling us more and more that the reason why you have arthritis and arthrosis is because you're not moving enough, in that you're not moving through all of the possible planes of motion of a joint junction. Yeah, you should have as much rotation possibility that way as that way in your cervical spine. You should have as much possibility to do that as to do that in your cervical spine. You should be able to roll your shoulders equally backwards and forwards. And so when you neglect the whole the complete possibility of each joint junction, you're actually robbing your body of an opportunity to keep itself healthy. Your body doesn't want to be sick. Your body was built to move. And yet, so many of us, when we get these diagnoses, go quiet and still and scared and start protecting. And that's what I see a lot. I see a lot of people who walk like they're scared. And they're scared to move because they're scared it's going to hurt. And I get that. But I would say move as much as possible. And I'm not talking about, high intensity cardio or, marathons or anything like that. I'm saying, gentle, smart movements that take your body through a full range of motion, like walking, like Tai Chi, like Pilates, like swimming, as well as all the other stuff you want to do. If you want to do tennis, great. If you're a rock climber, great. If you're a marathon runner, great. But make sure that in those repetitive movements that you love, in your swim and your run and your bike or whatever, you're also giving your body an opportunity to move intentionally by mobilizing each and every joint junction, because it'll stave off those degenerative, for want of a better word, diagnoses that come as we age.
Ooh, beautiful. Now I want to go and reverse engineer my questions from 3 to 1, if you don't mind. I'll start with the movement. When you said movement, I was like thinking in my head, oh, as much movement as possible, like as many variations of exercise. But you quickly corrected me on that one, because you said, do what you love to do, running, biking, whatever that is, but make sure there's enough mobility in wherever, well, pretty much where there's a joint and a muscle and a bone on the body, which is everywhere. And so I guess my question is that I know so I just want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but and I'm gonna bring it back to me, because I know there are probably many women who are asking the same question. I've heard that jarring exercises may not be as good for you as you think so. So what's your thoughts on this? By jarring, I mean running or
Yeah, impact.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I think it really depends. I don't come, and I think the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know. So you'll probably find that none of my answers are particularly black or white, because it really does depend. It depends on the person. It depends on their history. It depends on their background. There's been some great studies about, this is how you run with good form, and this is amazing posture. And then you see these Kenyan athletes that run several marathons a week up and down mountains in barefoot, with shoes, without shoes, whatever, with the worst running gait known to man, with appalling posture, and yet they're quick, they're efficient, and they're pain-free. So I think it really does depend. I think what I try and say to people is, what you enjoy, try and amplify that. Like I always say to my clients, okay, let's take what you're already doing and what's already working and what you already like, and let's try and amplify that. So if you already do a real lot of walking, I'm going to make your walk really good. If you already love to run, okay, let's look at your run and understand why your run might be causing your hip to hurt, and organize that better for you, give you some good warm up or good cool down exercises so that you can carry on the run without your hip hurting. Generally, my rule of thumb is yes, at our age, impact is not great for loads of reasons, pelvic floor maybe being one of them. But, again, I see loads of contradictions to me saying that. So don't really know.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying. Now, my other question is this. This is the last one on the movement and the exercise, which is point number 3. I watched your live video probably about an hour ago about the event that you're going to be holding on the 3rd of April. Now, I'm really excited because in that live video, you talked about, because I'm a lover of yoga, and this is my main movement, yoga. So you talked about, did you know that your core is not just here, but it's actually from somewhere up here down to somewhere down here. So that intrigues me, because I've never heard anyone say that. I've never been clarified that way, and it makes sense. Can you please tell me more?
Yeah, I think most people, when they think, right, I need to get a strong core, they think, right, okay, the core is the cylinder of my body from about here down to here, and from about here down to about there. I think most people think, right, okay, that's the core. And that's already quite an improvement, because I think in past lives, I've heard people say, oh, my core is my abs. So I think people are realizing, okay, core is not just your abs. There's other things. There's, back and all the rest of it. But actually, again, science is showing us that your body moves in chains, these big, long kinetic chains. And if you look at what the core's job is, its job is to stabilize, stabilize the spine, mobilize the extremities, help you breathe, and organize the pressure of your intra-abdominal system. So if it's going to perform all of those duties well, it has to be taken into consideration as its whole. And its whole means that to perform stability of the spine, uh, mobility of the extremities, from a stable point, breathing and organizing your intra-abdominal pressure, it has to start from inside your throat, and then it actually finishes in the muscles here in your inner thigh. So you can basically say, as I did in the video, and it was just for, shock effect as well. I like shocking people, but it's good educational fodder as well. That it starts from your throat and goes almost to your knees. So what I'm going to show in that masterclass on the 3rd of April is how to get each and every part of that core activated through the cunning use of 5 very simple exercises. And what I like as well is there's a really good alternative to an abdominal crunch, and there's a really good alternative to the plank. Because I think when people say, okay, I want a strong core, they go for planking or they go for crunching. And when I see people doing those things, I think, oh, here we go. Okay, they're inefficient. They're usually done really badly. They usually, make worse things that are already a bit niggly. And I just think, ah, shit, here we go, back to square one. So I'm going to be busting some myths using bad language. But yeah, taking people through what is the core, and how do you actually activate it for proper usage, and it'll be no mess, no fuss as well. You can come with makeup and jeans and all the
Ooh,
rest of it.
I'm
So
gonna be in the masterclass, that's for sure. I'm in there. Thank you. So I'll skip point number 2 because that was pretty clear. Eat less sugar, and you're gonna have to just. But because in the interest of time, but Jody, I'm really interested. So, um, look after your brain. That was the first thing that you said, and it's really
mm,
like for me, taking care of the brain has not been spoken enough about, and I love that you mentioned that first, because wouldn't you say that we can get really busy about doing and doing and doing and achieving and having and aligning and centering and being this and being that, and then like you said, there's no white vacancy, there's not enough of it, and so what happens is, so does that also in your experience actually contribute to the what I call the corrupted and the polluted and the crowded mind? um, can that actually antagonize conditions of the body that may be aging? Yes,
yeah, absolutely. I think when you have this white space that I'm talking about, it allows you to put things back into perspective. Certainly, a lot of the people that I see, their pain definitely has a root cause. It definitely has an epicenter that we need to unravel and treat. But it's creating as well a whole pile of associated pain that I call noise in the system. And to make sure that I can do my job as well as possible, and to make sure that I'm going to the source of their pain and not chasing pain around their body, I get every single one of my clients to follow a 17-minute relaxation video, which is the one that I can send to you as well, so you can share it. Because what it does is it just takes away the noise in your system, allows you to be able to clearly uh, see or feel where the actual problems are, instead of it just being like, like when you're between radio channels and you get that kind of, and then you get, and welcome to, Australia, World Australia News or whatever it is, that between the channels is sometimes where a lot of my clients are stuck. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a long time. It just needs discipline, like daily discipline, to think. Okay, I'm not going to think, or I am going to think, but I'm going to think. I'm going to think as a thinker, rather than, oh, did you hear about the news? Oh, have you seen this thing on Facebook? So it's really important. It's really, really important. Also, on that topic, one book that I would recommend that everybody reads who is in this demographic, Grace, is this. This is a brilliant book, The XX Brain, Lisa Mosconi. She is brilliant. She writes really well. She's, created all sorts of stuff. You can follow her on Instagram. When you're out of your white space, go and follow her on Instagram, Lisa Mosconi. She's written, this is her second book, and it's brilliant. It's just brilliant, and there's more stuff coming out like that all the time. I make it a habit to read as much as I can and to be as informed as possible. I know that not everybody is into this shit. Not everybody has got time to read. But if I was gonna say my favorite book of the moment, it's definitely that one. It's just brilliant.
I love what you do. I really do, especially when you said, the white space is all about getting into the epicenter instead of just trying to chase around the symptoms of this pain and that pain and that pain. And it's so classic, isn't it? When we go into the silence, we get to the root cause of whatever it is, whether that is physical pain or emotional, or it's that epicenter that we allow ourselves to be, because it's there. But we do things and consume things that make us go into the, what is it? the
Yeah.
place in between channels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Johdi, I love what you do. So please invite us to, and when we finish this now in a couple of minutes, please invite us to your masterclass. I'm gonna be in there first up, for sure, because I am a woman who is dedicated to teach not just myself and other women, but also my family. I have a 20-year-old beautiful daughter, who can really learn a lot about taking care of herself as early as possible. And this is what Women Unleashed is about: intergenerational transformation. I started to transform in my late 30s, early 40s, and I'm not getting my daughter to wait that long. She can now take care of herself and the children and the grandchildren. This is why we do what we do. So please do invite us to how we can work with you, where we can find you, and also about your masterclass on the 3rd of April.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So on the 3rd of April, I am doing a masterclass that is called Stop with the Planks Already and Do These 5 Simple Moves Instead. As we've discussed, you're going to drop the plank and the crunch, and you're going to learn how to actually activate your core like a sensible human being rather than a pillock. That is happening, yeah, as I said, 3rd of April. That's Sunday in a week. Otherwise, I can be found at jodiwoodford.com. I can be found on Facebook at Johdi Woodford. Johdi Woodford Therapeutics on Instagram, and you're welcome to come and join my free Facebook group as well, which is called the 3 V's Club.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask
Thanks, Grace.
I'm going to ask you one last wisdom from the woman that you are. Tell us one thing at the end of the day that you would love for us to remember.
That what you do now makes all the difference to your loved ones when you are no longer here.
Transformation, intergenerational. Thank you, Johdi. Thank you, everyone. We love you. And I am so ever grateful for your time tonight. I will see you soon. And take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.